If I could have your attention, we'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. It's good to see everyone this afternoon. My glasses just broke. That's great. Do want to remind everyone that this is a workshop meeting, that we will not be voting on the workshop portion of the meeting, but we will have a special called meeting immediately following this meeting to address some pertinent business that could not wait until our next regular meeting. So we do have agendas that are on the dais in the back, if anyone would like to grab one of those and follow along with us, and I will wear my one-armed glasses here to see. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Under old business, we have discussion for awarding the RFP, request for proposals for the development of affordable housing in the South Tifton redevelopment area. And I know that was presented to us at our last meeting, and we looked at several different projects and had a really interesting discussion. So I will turn that over to Bruce. Do you want to engage in any further discussion? I know we have some members of our urban redevelopment area here. The request was made by the council to delay this further discussion until this evening.
And I would almost say, can we table this until you let Johnny get here?
Well, Mr. Terrell knows the meeting starts at 5:30. I'll leave that up to y'all if y'all want to do that. It's quite frustrating personally, but I'll leave that up to y'all.
I would suggest just change or moving the old business right behind the new business.
All right.
If that's okay with the council, to give Mr. Terrell opportunity to, he was the one that was the most boisterous behind it. I mean, I know our meeting starts at 5:30. I know he knows to be here on time. It's
okay.
I
just
agree.
extending that courtesy.
Right. And I agree with the mayor, too. I mean, I agree with both, but let's in the interest of trying to not rehash some stuff, let's just.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on to new business, and then we'll come back and pick up the old business at the end of item 5 before we get into resolutions.
Thank you.
All right. Going on to new business, we do need to discuss thrift stores in downtown, and we do have a memorandum that is from Abby McLaren, our DDA director, regarding those, so that we'll need to enter into a discussion concerning a potential moratorium on thrift stores due to the economic viability for all the merchants for downtown. So Abby, do you need to address the council? And
I don't.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, that's fine.
Just so you all understand what we're doing, in the last DDA meeting, if you remember, we brought this around for discussion probably 6-7 months ago. There was some talk about, again, not just about thrift stores, but the consistency in the downtown area with shops, etc. The DDA did want to look at it, but you wanted to have some more information regarding that, and I concur. This has surfaced again with regard to an application that has come through. I did speak at the DDA meeting last week, and again, we talked through about just the term thrift stores, and they are in full agreement that we need to just bring this back, and we wanted to bring it to you for your consideration to maybe do a break moratorium on thrift stores, so we could at least, we being the city and the DDA and Abby's office, to understand about thrift stores and define them, understand again, the role, how it differs from antiques, etc. But this thrift store issue has been coming up and again, and what I will tell you, it has created some issues with offloading, loading, access, because there's a lot of material that comes in and out of there. So I want to be fair to entrepreneurs that open that, but then I want to be certainly fair to DDA to make sure that's part of the overall business plan for downtown, and we both deserve a chance to study that. So if that's your pleasure, we certainly can do that.
Okay. And I know with the density of downtown, shared alleyways, shared driveways in the back, that kind of thing, it can really create an issue for the neighboring properties as well. So many of our stores are now open on Sundays as well downtown. So I think it's something that we need to discuss. Does anyone have any questions or comments or?
And I believe, Abby gave some pictures. I think you have them at your seat, but Danny's thrift store did open. It's right next to the theater. Danny's, I believe, is the same one that was on the corner here of 3rd Street. And I believe that is his business. So again, I haven't discussed that with him, but Abby's fully engaged with that, and we're obviously having to watch it close.
Okay.
We
Did-
we need to do a study. I mean, because this is, I go back and forth, generally supply and demand takes care of it, and, they get too many, and, well, they're not gonna survive because there's not enough customers and that kind of thing, but you don't wanna be overrun, as well, so.
Is there something, do we have an ordinance already on the books that doesn't allow for item, like a sidewalk sale or something like that? I mean,
Well, I could tell you, Danny and I have discussed that, and in the picture, you see what's happening. The sidewalks are getting cluttered, and again, we're all about, signs and sales, et cetera, but you can't have that stuff on the sidewalk in the path. So I don't know if there's certain language about that, Danny, do you know?
That's mostly addressed by the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. You have to have a certain amount of width. In practice, we like to promote businesses, so don't mind if they put their signs out there. But this clutter is, it's a little more than.
Did they go through HPC for approval on signage and everything?
I don't know.
There is an ordinance, it's 70-1 on obstructions of sidewalks and streets. It just says it shall be unlawful and an offense against the city for any person obstructing a sidewalk, street, alley, or public road in the city by placing, maintaining, or keeping anything on any sidewalk, street, alley, or public road in the city. So we do have, an ordinance that addresses obstruction of the sidewalks.
okay. Well, yes, if it gets to the point, I'm not, Johnny, how you, the thrift stores don't necessarily bother to the point, but however, I guess obstructing, the sidewalk would technically be city property, is that correct? That's not on, so that's what we gotta protect. I mean, you gotta have the right to walk around, but if you have, I know on some businesses, they have stuff all outside and, kind of like a little sidewalk sale or whatnot, but I know if you have a sign and you have different items or whatever outside of the store or whatnot, trying to, promote them and sell them, that it can get real cluttered and cause a lot of issues. So that's kind of what I'm focused on here.
Even though this is, generally about obstructing the sidewalks, one thing you can consider, if somebody wants to have a sidewalk sale, maybe it's something that we could provide in the ordinance where you could ask for a permit for one day or something.
Well, I know in the past, through Main Street, they've done a collective, an organized, where those merchants that would like to participate will have a sidewalk sale on a Saturday or something. That's a little bit different than just the daily stuff outside, so, but yeah, that would be more of a special event that.
And I think that it needs to be enforced, not only on Main Street, but on all areas of the downtown, because I noticed that, Main Street, while it can be affected, but it's on 3rd Street and those other areas where it could get is just as cluttered. So, I mean, just because we're talking about Main Street doesn't mean that that's the only area that we're focusing on. I think it needs to be all of downtown that we.
Are we enforcing it now? I mean, I hear about, with ADA, I'm not worried about that right now, we'll enforce that, but.
We certainly can. I mean, if what they're doing, if they're obstructing the sidewalk, I don't know that we have actually enforced it up to this point.
So, yes, we have, or no, we just kind of turned a blind eye?
No, we did, we enforced it.
Now, if
You
it's
sure?
receiving a shipment of items or whatever, that's one thing, but or if they're having a sale, says, hey, listen, here's all the stuff that we have outside, I mean, that's another, that's what we're trying to do,
Well, if you're,
in my opinion.
this particular store was located at the corner of 3rd and Commerce Way.
Oh, is that the store?
That's this store.
Oh, okay.
And there was always pallets and boxes and their forklift
On
and
the sidewalk in front?
on the side, on the
Yeah,
Commerce
that's what
Way
I'm saying,
side,
yeah.
and then all the boxes on the front, so,
Well, I mean, the bottom line is enforce the darn thing.
yeah.
If we're not gonna enforce it, then let's rescind the ordinance and move on. So if the ordinance is on the books, enforce it. And we'll take the heat because we felt it was enough to have an ordinance and there's no,
So
it's
what
black and
would
white
we
to me.
need to do if you're saying, proposing, we study this, what's the next step? If we all agree, yeah, we need to look at this and address it.
I would like to get an opinion from the Merchants Association on this. I'd like to get maybe a DDA opinion, and just opinion. It doesn't necessarily have to be.
Well, you've got the DDA's opinion in
Oh.
this.
Okay,
Yeah, because it says the DDA feels strongly that a moratorium is necessary. That's why we're addressing it.
I see.
Is at the request of the DDA,
Okay.
in essence.
But we gotta go further than, moratorium. Does that mean you can have X number of thrift stores? I mean, is that?
Well, the way a moratorium would work, which, just say, okay, effective, whatever it is, just say February 15th, I'll just make up a date. From February 15th until June the 1st, we will not permit any more thrift stores to give us a time. Is that a fair statement, Rob, to give us, whatever the dates are, to give us time to study and make an assessment, and then we can decide how we want to move forward?
Right, but to Wes's point, the DDA is not taking a position. The DDA just wants a moratorium. They're not saying no
I
more.
don't take that as a position.
You take that as a position?
They have it right there.
Mhm.
I said, they
No
have it
more?
right there, let her tell us. Let her
And
tell
they
us.
have drafted a letter, but it has not been approved by all of them in the board.
Okay,
So
but let's be, more time to study is not the same as no more thrift stores.
That's right, and that's what they're asking for. A
That's right.
moratorium will potentially allow sufficient time to study defining a thrift store and create a long-term plan to assure overall economic vitality for all merchants. So I'm agreeing with you, what they've said.
I hear what they said. We just want to know what their position is, whether to allow any more or
What they
not.
say.
That's what I'm after.
Okay, well, good enough. So Abby, this thing here, say that, top word for me.
Huh?
Memorandum. Yeah, I can't say that, but maybe you, so this is what you wanna get this clear, I mean, that's what you wanna do, clarify what this means, like thrift stores and, all the rest of the stuff that's going on right there?
They just want more time to look at,
Uh-huh.
where they are, how many we have, study where they should go in the future, and other ones
Okay.
to open that kind of thing.
I mean, it
She
says
said
right
what you
here.
said.
Yeah,
It sounded better coming from her.
yeah.
Yeah, Mayor,
It says they would like for
Council,
us.
just a suggestion, I would say if one of you'd like to be involved and two DDA members and maybe one Tifton Merchants Association member, then we could, it won't take long, but we need, 90, 120
That's
days
what he got
to
appointed for.
look at that.
He going to DA.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's what he got
Well, no,
appointed
we're
for.
not gonna be on that committee as such, because I mean, they're
Oh.
voting on the.
But you
Yeah,
got
two
Well, all of
members
us would
DDA.
end up voting,
Right, but
so,
that's my point. is-
yeah.
but
I would suggest 120 days, and we could really hash this out, but I'm thinking maybe a couple other things maybe come out of this session for spirit of discussion, and look back at the commercial business plan and look at the trends, et cetera, et cetera. That would be my suggestion.
We'll put together a
So-
committee and DDA.
Right,
If you'll look at the second bullet point
Jack-
there under their memorandum, that's what they're wanting us to
right, we go with it.
study.
Jack Stone, I talked to Jack, he was, Jack been there for every 3 days. So he was he's concerned about thrift stores.
Right.
Yeah.
So he wanted a brick and mortar, nice store, that used to be downtown.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay.
All right, so would the council be, of course, we're not voting tonight, this would be for our next meeting, but is the council in essence at this point in agreement that we establish a 120-day moratorium for further review by the Downtown Development Authority and whatever partners need to come to the table for that study? So,
Okay.
okay, any other questions of Abby or Pete or Rob or Bruce or anybody before we move on?
Down.
Okay, all right, excellent, good job. All right, item number 3 is discussion of proposed design standards.
We'll go back to that item that we tabled.
It's up to y'all, we can do that now, or we can go on to,
Let's jump back to old business.
jump back to old business,
Yeah,
okay.
since we-
Johnny,
yeah.
what we did, item number 1 on the agenda was discussion of the RFP for the affordable housing and South Tifton redevelopment. We tabled that until you got here, so we'll go back and pick up item number 1 under old business. And that was tabled at your request at the last meeting for
Yes.
further
Yes.
discussion. So, at this point, I'm gonna turn everything over to Jessica and to Bruce, or Pete for any further discussion
Sure.
on,
yes, ma'am. Bruce comes up, I'll open it. If you remember, there was some question, Councilman Terrell wanted us to at least explore this during the work session. And we're talking about affordable living. This is half the property, possibly recouping the return on investment and then coming up with a plan for the other half. But this is obviously an investment in the neighborhood. And what I did is I put at your seat we were able to find a copy of the minutes from Matt Wilson Elementary School Conference Meeting, which is dated August 2nd of 2018. And then in addition, there's the timeline and kind of overview of the affordable housing for the South Tifton redevelopment area. So you could kind of get an idea of where we are, what time was spent, and then obviously, most importantly, if you want to go forward, what has to be done at this particular time, because we're at a very, very crucial crossroad just based on time. And again, nothing is in stone. This has to do with an application has to be submitted, very, very long process, and there's high stakes on this one. So Bruce and Jessica have been very, very involved in this, and I'll turn it over to you guys for comments or questions, and then we could field if you have any questions of us.
Okay.
Bruce?
Thank you, Pete. Jessica, did you want to say anything first? Okay. If you recall in the last dialogue that we had about this, there was a question about, did we talk about specifically the Captain's Point property, which we now call the old Omega Road site, if it would be individually built homes. And there was a lot of discussion since 2017, but we went back and looked in the minutes of two particular meetings that we had. One was, there were two at Matt Wilson. One was in August of 18 and one was in January of 18. And there is a reference to just the simple statement of affordable housing. And then from that point forward, when we as a staff group started talking and investigating, and before Jessica ever issued the RFP, I had asked Pete if we could invite the representatives from a firm in Atlanta called Kronberg Wall, and Eric Kronberg and Elizabeth on his team came and sat in this very room. We had a gathering of some of the URA, and we were interested in knowing what they thought, which direction should we be looking? And Eric specifically told us, and it kind of surprised us a little bit, he said, I will tell you that the low-income housing tax credits are going to be easier to format on multiple family dwellings than they are on individual homes. He said, you will have difficulty in aggregating enough money to be able to make enough of a difference. So that really kind of turned the ship towards looking at, and Jessica was poised already. She has worked in the past, as you know, with a couple of development firms over the last several years who have been very successful in Tifton, smaller scaled, but this particular project, in its final form, it ranged in presentation numbers from 72 to 56 units. It is a rare occasion indeed when our city will have another opportunity to have a parcel as large as what we call the old Captain's Point. A total of about 12 acres, not including the Board of Education's piece, because that's about 1.2 acres straight in front of Mount Wilson. And as you all know, we have a movement towards getting a CDBG grant to build some kind of community activity area there, which all of the firms that interviewed for the team talked about that, about how they could connect to that. And so it made all the sense in the world where we as a collective community were looking. But I would like, if we can, to ask our chairperson of our Urban Redevelopment Agency, because you all created it last July and you specifically assigned them with working on South Tifton. She and our vice chair, Vivian is our chair and Curtis is our vice chair. They have been very involved in the listening stage. And I would like to ask her just to come up and say a few words.
Yes, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Vivian Hightower, and I am the chairperson for the URA. We did a WALB interview last week, and I went to the lot where we're talking about now, and I did the interview there. After I finished doing the interview, I had some of the residents to come rushing over, and they specifically told me that they can afford, single dwellings. They can't. I talked to a lot of the young people. A lot of the older people said if they move, they're not coming back to that area. They're not going to come back. So when I got to talking to them about taxes, because if you purchase this property, you're going to have to pay taxes. They didn't understand what taxes was. So their mindset was like, if you get something over here nice enough for us to rent or rent to own someday, then we can do that. But as for right now, they're younger people in that area, and they told me themselves that they cannot afford it. They cannot afford it. Right when I left today from speaking to Mr. Terrell, I got a call from the Housing Authority, and they assured us that they was getting ready to go over and clean up the housing projects right over there because of the URA getting ready to put something over on that property. I've had homeowners to come to me today. I have not been home today, y'all. I've been out in the community. And I've had homeowners come to me today and ask me today, what can they do to fix up their homes if we're gonna put something beautiful over there and help beautify that area? And I assured them that we will put something over there affordable, livable, and something to maintain for them and their kids. Most of the young parents over there, they're worried about what will we do if we put something over their education for their kids. Will the older generation, the younger, older men, women, whatever, come over there and take over like they do the other ballparks and stuff? And I'm assuring these people, because I'm giving them my word, because I live in that area.
Right.
And they know me. And so on my word, I'm telling them that we're gonna put something over there that they can afford, something that they can live in and be comfortable in. Mr. Terrell, I know you love that community just as much as I do. And I know you're over there and you're fighting for that community. But these people have come to me and they said they cannot afford it. And if we put single dwellings over there and they can afford it, it's going right back to the city. Somebody's gonna pick it up because they can afford it.
Well, let me tell you this. If you can pay $415 a month rent, you can pay $415 a rent to own, so you own the house someday.
Yeah, but they're not looking at it like
We gotta
that.
think a little bit. See, that have been the same house for 60 years.
It
nothing
has,
changed.
Mr. Terrell.
We got to make a change.
We do, but we're looking
That's
at
what I want to read.
we're looking at the peoples that's over there. And if they're telling me that they can afford it out of their pockets, I can afford it.
Okay, let me.
They're
Let me
living,
ask you this right here.
wait a minute, Mr. Terrell, because they are renting.
Hold on, I'm gonna make
wait,
a point
I'm
of
saying what I
order.
got to
Hold
say.
on, let's be civil, Johnny. This is
I'm
a
being
constituent.
You just moved there. I grew up there.
I grew up there too. You're older than I am, and you've been there longer than I
I'm
have.
out.
I am not going to vote for anything
I am
other than what.
asking
Hey,
for a point of order, Johnny, please.
Hey,
Johnny, we're trying to have a discussion. If you were going
You
to
have
sit,
it.
that does not help. Johnny? Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Hightower.
It's
On behalf
okay.
of the city council, I
It's
do
okay.
apologize that you've been treated so
It's
rudely.
okay, I'm not afraid of Mr. Terrell. I told you this earlier. He and I had this conversation earlier. And I told him, because I had just come from over there. And like I say, people have been coming to me all day long. And they have been asking what we're gonna do with their property. I told him today, we had this same conversation today, that those peoples over there, they cannot afford single dwellings.
Well, I wish he would have stayed, because the comment that I would like to make is, until we raise the value of the entire neighborhood, by continuing to clean up, by giving people the opportunity who are owner occupants, potentially with the CHIP grant, to come in and improve their properties, by creating something that elevates the value of the entire area, there is no way right
We
now
can't
that
afford
we
it.
can sustain that a builder could go in and build a single-family residence for $30,000, which is about what it would, $30,000 to $40,000 to have a $400 house payment. You cannot build a new residence for that amount. So to come in and have rental units, which will be very, very nice, which
Right.
will be very affordable, will elevate the value. Once we get some other areas, once we get something in Newfront, once we get some of the little commercial areas, once we do some individual infill housing, where houses maybe have been torn down or have burned, and we can get the community behind this effort, then we can come in and do single-family owner-occupied houses. That is part of this big picture. It's not any one fix, it's multiple fixes. It's not really much different than the downtown and Main Street approach, where you had multiple facets. You had government buildings, you had arts, you had residential, you had commerce, you had all these mixes of uses and viable projects. So this is just step one. This is not the final step. The first step wasn't the creation of the urban redevelopment. The last step, that was the first step. We have a long way to go to elevate this value and to hear the concerns and the words of the constituents who live there. I remember one of the very first meetings we had, we all stood and said, it's not what we want as the council, it's what you want as the citizens of this area. And they want affordable housing, and they want an area that they can be proud of, just like any resident of Tifton. It shouldn't matter if your address is North Park Avenue or South Park Avenue. That should not matter. You should have safe, affordable, clean housing. You deserve the same protection. And so that's what the urban redevelopment area is saying. This is just step one of providing that. And what IDP has presented to us is a concept at this point. They have to present pictures and overall information to give us an idea of what they're talking about. We can tweak and change. They were very receptive. I know we reached back out to them to say, could we change the look of the buildings? Could we change the landscaping? And they absolutely. And if you'll notice in their timeline that they presented to us, part of that timeline was community participation. How do you, as the community who will live in these apartments, how do you want them to look? How do you want them to be, how do you want to be accessible to the school, to the other areas around town? We want to make sure that we're doing something you're proud of because we're in it for the long haul. The other interesting part of this presentation is that they want to buy the land back. We can recoup our cost through this project. That's good business as the city, where we can recoup that cost. And if you look at the way that our Downtown Development Authority operates, very similar to the way the Urban Redevelopment Authority operates, it's that purchase, investment, renovation, elevating the value, and then selling it that gives them the ability to then go and do the next project and the next project. And that lifts the value for everybody. So I appreciate what the Urban Redevelopment Agency is doing. I thank you so much for talking to the neighbors, and I see Mr. Terrell is back at the table. So, Johnny, I'm not going to be cussed at. No, I'm not. I'm not going to be cussed at.
Did I cuss at you?
It sounded like you did.
It sounds just like everything else this evening.
All right. Any further comments? Any further information from the Urban Redevelopment Agency or the council?
Just to reiterate some things on a house and owning a house and trying to build a house.
Yes.
What a house payment would be, and coming up with a down payment, and paying taxes and paying insurance, it's going to be well above this $415 number that's thrown out there. Right. Assuming, let's say the house is $80,000, which at $80 a square foot and 1,000 square foot house, 80,000, you got to come up with at least 10%, $8,000, and pay taxes. It just at this point in time, starting out, right. I don't see very many being able to do that. Now, this other property that we talked about, this other parcel, in this area that looks like that, and everybody starts building up their houses and neighborhood and it raises the entire value, then there could be some that would afford. But I don't see from listening that's the, we might want it to be the other way, but reality says it just isn't the time.
It's not there yet.
Right now.
It will be, but it's
But we
not.
work toward that.
Yes.
All right, when we supported to table this issue, you said that you was gonna go back and talk to some people or whatever in your community.
Yeah,
Have you done that?
yes. And the people I talked to were very much in agreement that we need to do something. But the ones that I talked to agreed that we should stick to the plan in the beginning. Give those people she said she talked to, they don't want to do better. You got to want to do better. I've lived in the project. I have not lived a mile from where I was born. I came from one house to the next house to the next house. That's all I'm saying. But give these people that want to do something, give them a chance. You know, they say, well, okay, a 3-bedroom house, it's $80,000. Okay? They can't come up with $80,000. They can't come up with the down payment. But give them a chance so they can pay the insurance while you paying them off. Look, here's a $417 a month. Look, the trailer that's falling in the ground. I mean, just almost falling out. The same money that you paying, 90% of my district is rental property. 90%, maybe 95% is rental property. What I'm saying, oh, that's okay, but let's give them a chance to own something. Because if you build that apartment like we saw, it's gonna be just like Tiffany Estate 5 years from now. I mean, Tiffany Estate was real nice when we went in there, but it fell through the cracks. Same thing happened with Brookfield Mule, fell through the cracks. So now, if you're gonna build, if you're gonna take a portion to build apartments on, let's do it on that second part. But let's give them people that out there that got a job, that want to work and pay for something. Let's give them a chance. That's all I'm saying. I don't.
Let me ask you this, you know, we had talked about this a little bit in Atlanta when we were at Mayor's Day. What if we took the purchase of the lots, you know, we're gonna give, what, 420,000, is that right, Pete, something like that?
Give or take.
And we, parcel 2, track 2, we use that to build, and now this is not saying this is the plan, I'd say we'd have to explore that, URA would have to explore it and everything else. I don't even know if there's a developer that would do this with us, but somehow or another take that money and maybe build 3 types of different floor plans for people on that second parcel and make, you're talking about 1/3 of an acre on 5 acres, you could probably get, you know, 15, 20 homes out there facing South Ridge, you know, and that what we was talking about right there on the South Ridge neighborhood, and kind of incorporating that and giving it that, but this initial investment to be able to do that would have to take place. I mean, that's only, I swear I'm juggling, behind this is maybe the second phase of this is what you're talking about, giving those folks an opportunity, at home ownership.
Right.
And being able to take that money, put it into some sort of, investment account or whatnot to build three floor plans. People can come in there and check it out, say, oh, I like floor plan number 1. Well, maybe they buy that house with the URA, and then we take that money and reinvest it in the same floor plan, and then there's still 3 floor plans to choose from.
But right now, to get the majority of the people, or a lot of people, into affordable, safe, clean housing, the proposal that they made, me, is about the only way to go. And I can appreciate that 80% or 90% of your constituents rent. 67% of all of Tifton rents. So the rest of us, you know, you do the math, and I probably got over half. You know, we have a whole lot of renters too, because a lot of people, that's all they can do.
Or that may be all
I
they
guess,
want.
I guess kind of what I was thinking of is sort of like a compromise.
Want to
in this whole
do,
deal.
but having that safe, clean place, I think, is more important to most people, not all people, than necessarily buying a house. And just because they own a house, doesn't mean that house gonna be kept up. Because I can show you some houses close to me, and people own them, and Lord help, it didn't matter that they own them.
See, that safety and cleanliness that you're talking about, it don't matter if they own them or not. But what I'm saying, let's get, for 60 years, I'm 72, for 70 years, okay, that has not changed one bit. It's been you in one door and out the other, from a rental company, I can't call his name, but I shouldn't. But you rent that. But why not okay, like you said, let's build floor plan. And then they say, well, hey man, if you choose it, we're gonna give you a chance to buy this.
Yeah.
You know, don't just kick the can down the road. Cause everybody say, well, we putting them out. We're not putting them out, we're trying to make you feel better about staying someplace. You know,
But
if
and
you go
another
down.
thing is, and I don't want you to lose sight of this, I know you have it, but this is just phase one of the overall phase of the plan. You know, so this isn't once we develop Captain's Point Trailer Park, we're done, you know.
Well, let's
this
look
is
at a
URA.
picture, I'd love to have a big picture of what Captain's Point Trailer Park, and I don't know how long it's been there, Johnny, you'd have to tell us if it's been there 40 or 50 or 60
It says
years.
70 years.
Well, put a picture of that versus the picture we saw 2 weeks ago. And to say, we hadn't done anything,
No.
or hadn't done it for 70 years, look at what is being done, and there is no comparison to where these people will be living versus where they were living.
Look at the housing authority. They showed us a picture how they redeveloping that neighborhood. Do you see that?
Yeah.
They came to us and showed us a upscale of the houses. They finna start moving those old things out of the way that been there 72 years, 70 years. They can move that out of the way and bring in a new. I'm saying, how would in the world you gonna take this? That area right there on South Reed or something is the highest travel street in South Central, other than South Central. Now, why not you look over when you looked over there at Captain Point, you saw a ragged trailer with the door hanging up on it. I'm trying to say, we trying to tell these people, hey, we trying to help you, man. We ain't trying to come over there and take nothing from you. We trying to make you feel better about where you live.
Right. And
We
I
all
get that.
agree in that.
And I get that, and that's
We
exactly
all
what
agree.
we're
You know what
trying
I'm
to
saying? But see, we agreed in the beginning, in the first meeting we had, we agreed that we would simply buy this and start low-income housing for sale, for ownership. That was,
Who was gonna pay?
Al, you had, you recorded the stuff that we said, who was what?
Who was gonna pay for that though?
Who was gonna pay for
To
that?
build the houses? Who was gonna, and finance the houses?
The city. That's what you said.
No, sir. Here's the minutes right here. It was affordable housing. There is a for sale component. That is true. There is a for sale component eventually. We've got to raise the value of the neighborhood. Right now, it won't work. The numbers will not work, and the city is not in the house building and financing business. That's the private sector.
I want to say something. So I wasn't on the council, I guess, 5 years ago, obviously, but I was voted on to get on the URA. And just like you, Mr. Terrell, I grew up in that area too, 1107 Hargreave, right down the road. My dad still lives in that house, so I'm invested in the community as well, and I will be forever. And it is, yes, we do need to improve that community, and yes, we need to bring great life to everybody that lives over there, but it is a teaching aspect as well. Just as if she said, people didn't even know they had to pay property taxes. That's mind-blowing, So you have to start somewhere to be able to grow your community regardless. And I think this is you can dislike me or whatever you want to say, but this is a major step. You've got $11 million about to be invested into an area that's been horrible for, yes, the last 30 plus years. I mean,
And it's unfortunate that it has.
that's unfortunate that it's been
Yes.
that way, but at least we're making the right move to go that way. And I think the people that sat around the table with that URA have made some great decisions on the way to take it. And I don't think we're knocking away from building any homes there for somebody to own. But as we all know, and as me as a property owner and investor around Tifton to build up the community, you've got to start somewhere. You can't just put those houses there and expect somebody to come in there and afford those things. It's going to look just as it looks 30 years ago if you put those houses over there. It's going to have to be a teaching situation, So these 56 units that we've put in for, I think that's a really, really good opportunity for the area. And the other opportunities that's going to come along with that, I think it's going to have time to grow. I mean, we can sit and we can pout and we can fuss all day, but I think this is what we need to move on to. Because right now, we're just gonna keep looking at dirt. And I'm tired of looking at dirt when I ride down there. I don't know if you wanna look at dirt, but I'm tired of looking at dirt. So we can either keep looking at dirt, or we're gonna put some on the land.
And if you'll recall, in their proposal, this IDP said that they could come back and look at the second phase, potentially for individual, single-family, owner-occupied residences on the second phase. But we gotta clean it up and lift it up. Yes, Bruce?
If I may,
Yes.
follow up to what Councilman Hall said, and what all of you said, what Councilman Eller said, it's this flow of money. We don't have any money.
Right.
Let's just lay that on the table. What little bit the Urban Redevelopment Agency has comes to us from the city. Just about every single dollar of that is going to be spent for the relocation of the remaining residents that live on Park Avenue in those trailers along Park and in the Second Road. And by July, that money will all be gone. If we don't have this development come in, and remember, they bring their own money, but it's based on these low-income housing tax credits. But that's their business. Our business is, what do we give? And you all have said it repeatedly, it's safe, sanitary, affordable, attractive housing. And yes, it's rental, but it's rental because that's what makes those low-income housing tax credits work. The consultants have told us, for us to start off and to try to build 10, 15, 20, 30 housing units that are for sale, they just can't package those low-income housing tax credits. So I go back to what Councilman Eller said. Cities purchased the first phase, the western side. We own that dirt. We own the second set. We just bought that December 31st, but it's still occupied. And our little bit of money is going to be spent to not disenfranchise those people who've lived there for 15, 20 years. We have to take care of them. But the firm that we are recommending said in the neighborhood of $420,000 they would pay the city for that first piece of dirt. And as you said, Councilman Ellers, that gives us, if the city chooses and the URA works together, that gives us a fund that we then, when we have clear dirt going down Park Avenue, we could look at. We can put out an RFP for housing the same way we did for multifamily. But they're going to have to meet some guidelines, and it's going to have to be affordable. And then we have to determine what is affordable, going back to what Councilman Terrell has said. So there is a way that you can do this, but I'll share with you every little bit I know is that you got to have that first piece first, because that's money that comes from out of town. That's not the county, that's not the city, that's not the URA, that's an investor. And as Councilman Hall said, right at 12 million.
That's an automatic return on our investment as well, so.
And that's what I'm saying, that's just good, that's good business, and it does provide potentially some seed money to do other things. Because not only do we have the housing aspect, we have the commercial aspect with Newfront.
Absolutely.
What are we gonna do with Newfront? You know, I mean, is there gonna be a coffee shop, a barber shop, you know, whatever, a boutique? You know, there are numerous components to this plan. It's not any one quick fix and boom, it's done. And just like Main Street and what's happened with our Main Street program, it's taken 30 years to build that tax base. It's not new land that's been brought into downtown. It's increasing and improving the value of the tax base so that then it does make sense. Thank you, Bruce. All right, any further discussion? I know. All right, well, let's get back to our order of business. We were under new business and we were getting ready to talk about design guidelines or design standards. And Danny, I know you've worked on that and have provided some information in our packet, so I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor and Council, while he's getting prepared, this is one more step forward, and I asked Danny to not only create a sample that he's going to go through, but what I'd like to do is quickly go through. He has 3 examples in your packet of design standards, one from Thomasville, one from Moultrie, and one from Valdosta, just to give you a idea of what the current ordinances in those cities look like. So again, very standard, but then very detailed as it relates to the community itself. So this is one more step that, you know, getting your input on design standards. Danny has done a lot of work on this, and I think it's very, very appropriate and timely for us to take a look at this. So, Danny.
Okay.
Go ahead, Danny.
So Mayor, Council, I've been studying this quite a bit for a few months. And I've received information on it from training, Gaza, being involved with the zoning administrators in the state. So I wanted to try to make something simple for Tifton. And all of these ordinances that I looked at, some of them are thick. I mean, some of them are an entire book. And, but our area, they average about 6 or 7 pages. And I didn't want this to be a burdensome regulation. I want it to beautify the city, to make it a nicer home for all residents of the community. So I kept it simple, I kept it easy to understand, and I got it down to 3 pages.
Good job.
I wanted to, this affects all, this affects all zoning districts that have the ability to have commercial. I don't have one. I couldn't get the whole city on one piece of paper.
Stop. That's okay.
If you remember last time, I think, Wes, you asked about the zoning in your particular districts, and it really resonated with me to understand what that looks like. So I asked Danny to carve out your district and the zoning inside of that, because under the section, what Danny created is all development activity within the zoning district. So this would exempt single-family residents unless you want to put that in, but I wanted to give you a snapshot of your district and what the zoning actually look like. So this, the design standards, anything new coming into your district would obviously relate to what would design standards be called for. So
it doesn't include single family?
No, sir, not at this time. My understanding at the time of the discussion was that there was a fear that it would increase cost in residential housing. So I just exempted that, but it can very easily be changed.
Well, what about those, I mean, because you had pictures from before, right there across from 8th Street, of those, I don't know if they're single family, or they could easily be single family, that, you know, got grown up, that don't really look like anything else around. You know what I'm talking about?
Where?
Across from the school,
There,
8th
they-
Street Middle School,
8th Street Middle School?
across
Oh,
the
yeah.
street.
Yeah,
Those single family?
those are single family, yes, sir.
yeah, I agree.
That's
Yeah.
the whole, I mean, that was the whole point of this. It wasn't, I mean, in my area, it's that, and then that building.
I like it.
I mean, I hear cost, I realize cost, but if I'm living next door, guess what? The value of mine just went down.
Well, why don't we, let's hear what he's proposing for at least the commercial. If we want to go back and roll in residential, we can certainly do that. I'm curious to hear what you're proposing, or what would be best for any of the commercial areas. I know that was the priority, I think that was sort of the priority.
Right.
Many of the neighborhoods are going to be, the residential neighborhoods, I would think, would be, although it's not necessarily design standard, a lot of the subdivisions and neighborhoods with covenants and things, that would fall under that, but you do have parts of the city that don't have that from a resident standpoint. But let's hear what he has to say on the commercial, and then if it's the will of the council to add residential, we can add residential. Is that a fair statement for everybody? Everybody good with that? Okay.
Yeah, so I like the idea of residential design standards as well. So this right here, this will affect some residential zones, RP in particular, and multi-residential and neighborhood commercial. Those are allowed to have single-family dwellings in them, but they're also allowed to have commercial. That's our mixed-use zoning. So it does affect some of those zones as well. So as you go through, it talks about the building materials. That's in the 3rd section on the 1st page. We start talking about the materials themselves, what they can and cannot use, the amount of, the percentage of their facades, if it faces a street or can be seen from a street. So they have to dress it up. And then the next section talks about the types of materials that are allowed, and then the materials that are strictly prohibited. And you can't have all one material, so there was some concern with a metal building, and it's just plain. It was just a plain metal building with no windows except for on the front, and it's visible from all sides. So this particular section would cause them to have to break up those facades in some form or fashion by using different materials, or using, windows, doors, those kinds of things, to break it up, to make it not look like a box.
And I would assume, so let me just ask the question, with our new design cottage that we have that is serving the urban redevelopment area, that design assistance could be made available if someone came in proposing, this is what I'd like to do, and it wouldn't fit this, they could work with our staff to come up with something that would be acceptable.
Absolutely, and I've taken a page out of Bruce's book, and I've gone around and I've started collecting architecture books and put some in my office as well.
Danny, excuse me, what's kind of neat, if you'll fast forward, the city of Moultrie, their design standards, which I've liked very much, they actually have pictures, which is good illustrations, because sometimes words get confused, but they went a couple steps, forward, actually putting the desired pictures and how it looks in the particular section of design standards. So yes, to your point, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and absolutely, and this is very much a draft, just wanted to present it to you, and we can polish it and form it and make it something good for the entire community.
Okay.
And we talk about roofs and materials, and site standards.
So let me ask you this, if we wanted to, I mean, just because it says R14 or R10 or R12 or R20 or any of that stuff, we can go back and we can change the name or the number, we could create a new, or is that state?
No,
So we could call it R50.
We could.
And then there's whatever the zoning is determines the standards of what it should be there. There's some places in my district or whatever that do have vinyl siding. My neighborhood on 50th Street going forward, or going north, 40th Street up, has vinyl siding structures, and they're decent little buildings or whatnot, decent homes, I'd say. But they're in neighborhoods over where you are, or the zoning, we may have some R14, but it may be called something else where vinyl siding may not be the will of the area, so to speak. So it may be, hey, brick only or hardy board plus, is the minimum standard there, and you call that R50 or whatever, I don't know, but what I'm saying is that it may have to go deep like that, and then it's very easy to look at and say, okay, hey, listen, you are in the R12 neighborhood, here's what your design standards are, here's what you can use for your building materials, and you're letting these folks and these contractors know up front. I do know that there's an area, the new subdivision that's being built over.
Finley Chase.
That's not on here, but is that a planned development over?
That is a subdivision, that is a planned development.
So they have their own specific guidelines or whatnot, like Cypress Ridge does, so, I guess we could zone those PDOs, its own zone, it doesn't necessarily have to be, because I think Cypress Ridge is, R12, but it would be its own zoning because it's got its own standards,
That's right.
So that's what I'm thinking about, is that we may have to go more deeper and more defined in this thing, but I know we don't have a lot of time to.
We don't, and I think that's obtainable, and if you look at Thomasville's, they really get really detailed with it, so I think we could do a blended mix, and I think, obviously, I don't think we're ready, but we have to go to March to give you something that probably completes not only zoning, but residential standards, and we could put together the best of the best for your review. But I think we could do that. It's very easy to incorporate the zoning. I think it's a great idea because we're seeing the pockets for developers finding these lots in the middle of every residential zone. Finding these pockets, the most undesirable lots, low areas, building them up in the back of things, trying to put homes at the cheapest rate possible and all the most undesirable building materials there are. And I think if we could curb that, then it's very, very satisfying.
Build a lot up, and that's great, where you're in zone 14, but you can't use, or, your vinyl siding's only limited to a third of you have to build brick and then 30% vinyl siding or something like that. doesn't matter. Or the zoning also determines the square footage required, so, what we have to do is protect the values of the neighborhoods, as well as if somebody wants to build, give them an opportunity where there's not, in a neighborhood where the home may be on average 150,000, it's gonna have to spend 200,000 to build the same quality home because we got it so strict. So that's why I'm saying it may take a little bit of time, and this could be very time consuming as far as.
If you're okay with the design standards and you're comfortable with that, and we could tuck in residential, we could come back and attach that to the.
We could go ahead and pass a blanket ordinance, I guess, and then we can go in there and redefine it.
We could.
Is that?
Absolutely.
Very well could.
Well, and we've
I
got
know that
large
sounds
parts of
kind
the
of crazy
city.
to do, but
Here we are just talking about the urban redevelopment area. Once things get going, if they do, there's gonna be a lot of attention brought to that particular area for people to get in now. Because if we, as a council, are able to elevate the value of that neighborhood, people wanna get in at the lowest value point. And if we don't have some guidelines or some specifics on how we as Tifton wants Tifton to look, I'm just using that one area as an example, we could really end up with a mess, and then that devalues. So, we do have to be very cognitive of the costs that, could be potentially incurred, but I think providing that design assistance is really important. That's why I wanted to ask that.
Absolutely.
To say, okay, this is what is acceptable per the ordinance. Here's some photos, here's some examples of what will work, and then it just creates a stronger community.
and maybe we need to be a little bit more clear. And Mayor, I don't know what the specific House bill or Senate bill that's out there right now being discussed, but we're talking about this because there is a bill out in the General Assembly right now that's going to try to take the abilities for cities and counties. They're going to take that ability to create design standards locally away from us. And Atlanta's going to be able to dictate what can and can't go somewhere. And so I know we've had some conversations here recently with our state officials about, hey, this is what we would like, and, give that power to us. As local citizens, we know what our communities want, So that's why this is being brought up right now. This is not something out of the blue. And Stuart, I would also like for you, and I wish I had the House bill and Senate bill.
172.
House Bill 172, you
Senate
may
Bill
want to look
380.
into that a little bit.
There's a Senate bill as well.
Yeah.
Senate bill, I can't remember
380.
its number.
380.
380, look, she knows exactly what it is. And look into that and see what kind of, what they're proposing to take away from your local governments. So we have to go ahead and pass something in place, put something in place in order to protect us, to be able to have that ability to keep our community the way we'd like it to be seen, I guess, in so many words, but.
Well, if you'll look, we're so, it's a great problem to have. We're so very fortunate with all the development that's happening in our county. From the Coca-Cola plant coming in to other business, small business downtown, here we are discussing, what type of businesses do we want downtown? That tells me that our storefronts are full and that there's a demand to be in certain areas. We're looking at, you just mentioned a brand new residential subdivision that the paint's not dry on the front door yet. So there's an incredible amount of development. Not to mention all the new hotels and the restaurants and things that are happening. So we do need to be ahead of that wave as it crests. And it's very important for us to maintain what we call home rule. In other words, Tifton needs to decide how Tifton will look, not Atlanta. We don't need state government legislating to us how this community should look.
That's right.
Georgia's a very diverse state with an incredible geography, mountains and oceans and rural and all in between.
I agree.
It is timely.
We need to move forward, and the reason I bring up the residential, because it's in your district, West, but it's one block from me.
Yeah.
That entire block behind St. Anne's.
Yeah.
And you can, it scares me to death as to what might.
But that's a plain PDO, isn't it?
So,
That's already been approved as a PDO.
Which property is that?
It's off of 28th Street, is that right?
it's 28, and it's right behind St. Anne's.
28 Central.
Love,
Yeah,
26th, or the 4th.
it's across from
have to look.
apartments. anyway.
I've got terrible memory, y'all.
But that's what I'm saying, it's so
There's
important.
individual lots, but that's a big piece.
A local community should have that decision-making ability, not the state of Georgia, unfortunately. That's what my opinion is, and that's what I shared with our elected officials, hopefully, and those folks that have the power in Atlanta hear us loud and clear when we say we want to keep the home rule.
Okay.
Well
So
said.
what's next
Well
step?
said. So if it's okay, Danny and I will go to work, tuck in some residential language, and make it where it works for us. Very, very general and basic, but at least we'll have something in place to prevent anything in the future, and then bring that to you in March
Okay.
to discuss it, and if you're happy with it, we'll go with it.
Okay, if y'all don't mind, as you kind of get things put together, can you email that out to us? Because this is a lot of information. I think it's gonna take us, I agree with Wes, when we may have to dig a little deeper than we're anticipating. It's so easy to say, well, we're just gonna create design guidelines, but how does that, so as you get this information, so we can really process it and be ready for full discussion in March, that would be helpful, I think, if you don't mind. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And Danny, you know me, I'm
100%
gonna
agree.
give my 2 cents. I'm gonna look at my neighborhood and ride through my neighborhood. I'm gonna try to pick out the areas that if I had to create a different zoning, what would it be and what would those design guidelines be? So if somebody did pick a vacant lot over there, that at least the design of that new house will look like the rest of the neighborhood.
That's perfect. And that's,
Okay.
when you said that last meeting and I looked at the zoning maps, I said that's exactly what we can be doing as a city to clean that up, because if you have one and there's a step down capability, they're gonna step down and the neighborhood's gonna suffer. Jack is exactly right about bringing the values down. So if we could do all this and go into South Tifton with that type of, attitude, I think this is would really work well, not for next year, not for 5 years, but for 10 years.
Right, exactly.
So that'd be good stuff.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, item number 4 under new business, updating the utility service map to include phase 2 of Willow Creek subdivision. Pete, you want to talk about that?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I've been talking with the county manager about this. This really is an administrative improvement. We had Willow Creek Phase 2 come online. That is in the county. And when Mr. Deloach applied for the water and the services through EPD to get permitted, EPD said, who is the service provider? And he said, well, phase 1, it's the water system. And so this area in phase 2 was out of the service area itself. So Jim and I went back and forth with a map. Adam and Jeff did define this. The regional commission did update this. So this service area map includes the future growth areas, the current water and sewer boundaries, the city limit boundaries, and the only thing we would need to do is update Form 2, send DCA an updated service map. Willow Creek obviously could go forward with that. So it is administrative, but we copied the exact map that was in place 1999 on the future and current service, so we didn't make anything up. The county did sign, they said this is good, we're in agreement, so this is just administrative type that we have to do for
Any questions?
Willow Creek.
Yeah, it's administrative, so we've expanded water and sewer to another area outside the city limits.
Well, it was already there. So it's a phase 2, so really on the map, the service area map had to be.
So when was it put in, when was this phase 2 put in? Water and sewer?
He applied, 6-8 months ago? Maybe a year ago?
So why are we doing that?
Wait a minute, but you're talking about phase 2 of the subdivision,
Of the subdivision.
so now, that's inside the city limits, right?
This is in the county.
And it's outside the city, it's out.
So
Oh,
phase
yeah,
1
it's
is inside the city limits.
It's the unincorporated areas.
That's correct.
The whole subdivision is not inside the city limits?
That's right.
So
I thought it was in.
why are we doing this? We own the water system. We've ended the agreement. We own the water system. Why wouldn't we have this, why would we continue to go outside city limits to have water and sewer? That is not in the best interest of the city or the residents of the city who built this water system on their backs.
I completely concur. However, since we service phase 1, this is just a boundary expansion, so phase 2 could be brought in for services.
I don't want phase 2, I don't want phase 3, I didn't want phase 1.
1, but that's already done. Go on phase 2, 3, or 4. It's a city water system. I think we were clear about that, and our legal thing says we're clear about that. I have no desire to expand the city water system outside the city limits for any reason.
Okay.
Just about 2 cents.
All right. Any other questions, comments? No? Well, let's move on to item number 5. Thank you for your comment. All right, item number 5 is discussion of amending the alcohol beverage license, or ordinance, excuse me, to include event venues. Jessica, you want to go over that information for us?
Yes, we have a prospective business owner actually applied today. They're interested in opening a event venue on Virginia Avenue, and so it's just going to be open for rentals. They say from time to time they might schedule entertainment, sell tickets, and they're interested in getting an alcohol license. And after review of our ordinance, we do not define an event venue. And so we're just bringing this to council to see if that would be something that you would be interested in allowing to have an alcohol license. We have an entertainment establishment, a restaurant, a bar, there are different definitions, but nothing that this would fit into.
So the current ordinance says if I want to have an event at 123 Main Street and it's an event venue, then I have to get a caterer who would have their alcohol license to provide that service. That's what we do now at the conference center, at the TIFF Theater, and various
Correct.
locations. So just for clarification, so
So what we're saying is if you're having an event, you just get a permit?
no, but there's
That's what this person would have to do, but they're requesting to get their own alcohol license so they don't have to get an event permit and work with a caterer each time they have an event which needs alcohol. They want to go ahead and have the alcohol sales available on site.
I would eliminate the need for a caterer, alcohol licensing.
The caterers are going to do it at different places.
Yeah.
But this
Well,
one,
just for this location.
But if I was a caterer, I wouldn't pay for that. Because you have to obtain the alcohol license on top of having your business license to be a caterer. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if you're going to allow anybody to do that, I would just not pay I'd just pay you
Well,
a
there's
business license
plenty of
and not my
places
alcohol
where we
license.
do catering. The main ones we do are the theater and the UGA Center, and I doubt either one of those would get their own alcohol
this is
license.
just a new business.
I wish they would. It's a lot less work, but I don't know why the UGA Center has not. They could because our ordinance does describe is it 500 seats an auditorium, so they could. They just I don't know if it's because it's on the University of Georgia why they not. This one doesn't fit any of our other marks, so.
And I've been Jessica and I have been talking, and she sent me some ordinances from other cities, I guess Friday. And I have been trying to see how you pigeonhole a event center as far as being able to have an alcohol license. Generally, we define things such as restaurants and bars, and actually I contacted GMA, asked them the question that we want to have this event center and they want to have an alcohol license. I can't remember the young lady's name, but I talked to GMA, but she'd also talked to Lucy Patel up there, and they said, well, we don't see any reason why you couldn't classify it as a bar. And I said, well, that was my thought initially, but then the definition of a bar under state law is that you derive 75% of the gross annual revenues from the sale of alcohol. So I didn't see how this could fit under the category of a bar. And then I asked, well, I know bowling alleys, sell alcohol. How are they doing that? And GMA folks couldn't really tell me, how that's. So, I have reviewed one of the ordinances that Jessica sent me from Fayetteville, and it does define billiard halls and bowling alleys and event centers. And it looks like they have a derivative 25% gross, no more than 25% gross annual revenue from alcohol. But then when I look at the event center, and then you look at, what age group could go into the event center that is serving alcohol. And of course, generally, it's, you can't go in unless you're, 21, unless you're accompanied by an adult or your parents. So that's another, problem that I'm trying to work through as far as you have an event center, you can have an event, and if they have an alcohol license, who can go in? Now, and I honestly just have not had a really good chance to drill down on this, but it appears that Fayetteville may have to designate a certain area of the event center that serves the alcohol. So with all that being said, I'm not really sure exactly how we do this and do it properly. So hopefully I'll have some more time to kind of look at these other ordinances. I had suggested to GMA that perhaps I could give a call to the Department of Alcohol and Tobacco and see, if they have some rules or regulations that may apply to this. Unfortunately, I'm not really prepared to make a call on it yet without getting some more information as far as how we can make this happen. I don't have a problem with it. I just want to make sure that whatever we do, we're complying with state law and we're fitting this into a category that, and we properly regulate it so that they can do this.
Let me ask a question, just so I can make sure I understood what the request is or what the consideration is. So there's an event venue that, let's say I have a wedding reception there. I would contract with that event venue to either give alcohol away that I would pay for at my reception, or I would have a cash bar and that money would stay with the event venue. That's correct?
They would sell the alcohol just at a bar.
Right, okay.
And so when I was talking to GMA, they kind of gave me the example, well, some bars only open up 2 or 3 days a week. So that kind of makes you think, okay, well, you don't have to be open 24/7.
Right.
But in the end, you run into that problem that this is not a bar, it's
Right.
not under state law.
I mean, I don't understand what the issue is. If you want to have an event center, you want to host a wedding reception, you're going to have alcohol, well, there's going to be underage kids there. That doesn't mean you sell it to them, but they're going to come to the reception. My Lord.
Well, the state law, if we classify as a bar, they're not underage, they're not supposed to be in.
We don't classify it as a bar.
I know, we don't have
Well, we
anything to
don't have
classify.
classification for the
That's what I'm saying.
Event center. Tell me.
Yes, that's what I'm wanting to know. I just don't want to spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
It's not something that y'all are for. We also have
Is this come up a
somebody.
lot? Is this come up a lot?
Somebody wants to own a business, so we're going to turn them down.
No, because
Well,
But
I know that there are 2
category
people
for the
trying to
alcohol
do an event
part of
center,
it.
and they're wanting to have alcohol. I mean, it's just like Collins.
Yeah,
really.
so pretty much, which is it's in the county, so, that's how they run theirs. But I do have an event center, and I do have an alcohol license. I do have my own personal events. We run it as just like you would do any other operation. You check ID, or you have some type of person that would check IDs as they come in for each person. Also, as well, in my contracts, when people rent my building, they do sign saying that everybody that is going to consume alcohol on your event will be 21 and up. So but they're not actually operating under my alcohol license because they are actually providing and doing whatever they want to do for the alcohol license, unless they say that we want to buy the alcohol from Collins, and then that's where we come in and we sell
I
alcohol.
think that's really the issue, Jack. I think that's the issue. If they're licensed, and they have an alcohol license to sell, then actually they can sell, but then does that then restrict anyone from under 21 going to the event center? So MJ, you might have, an event that 20 people over 21 can go in, and then you check IDs. Well, that's the point of the regulation. See that, if you're selling alcohol, that nobody under 21 can go in. But certainly restaurants are different than that, but they're defined differently, under the
Ordinance, the responsibility lies with the caterer, correct?
Well, and when I talked to GMA, that was my thought. I mean, generally, you're gonna rent an event center, and you
Then the
contract
responsibility lies with the owner of the event center. Yeah,
I mean, this just should be a no-brainer, I don't understand.
And, well, I wish it was. And as I said, there's, you know, it's a little complicated because when you're looking at state law and definitions of bar, who can go in, and you have an event center that really is not a bar, it's not a restaurant.
What has the county classified as?
It's an event space.
I don't know.
An event space. That's part of an event space, and you can sell an alcohol license, and they'll have events there. You can't serve
We
someone
don't
under 21.
define that. I believe they actually, I believe that they define it as a bar. And if look at my email, but we don't have a definition for that.
But state law does.
Or would y'all also be interested in looking at adding alcohol availability to someone that would want to do an entertainment center such as allowing it at a bowling alley or a skating rink?
So the bowling alley, you're talking about, so the bowling alley, not saying that the bowling alley wants this, but if a bowling alley were to open, and wanted to sell alcohol, it wouldn't be a bar if they sold,
I understand that.
you know, because more than 75% would not come from.
And that's, you know, and the problem is I have a little bit of a time constraint as far as me trying to, you know, drill down on this issue and exactly how you go about doing it. Because certainly bowling alleys, you know, I know serve alcohol. From a personal standpoint, I don't have any problem with an event center, you know, having an alcohol license. I'm just trying to figure out if we have an alcohol license for an event center, then what's going to be the corresponding restrictions as far as you have to be 21 to go in?
well, it sounds like the council is in agreement that an event center should be allowed to have. Is that a fair statement? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you take that
Yes.
and run with it and
The
see
same
what you can provide to us?
restrictions anybody else that serves alcohol.
I'm sorry?
The same restrictions anybody else serves alcohol, whether it be a restaurant or somewhere else.
Yep.
You got to be
Of
21
age.
to have it. Now,
Well,
maybe
for
it's
instance,
Stand on
for instance,
some craziness.
and I'll have to look at it again, and I'm just talking from memory, but like a hotel. I mean, my recollection is they have to have their bar, you know, designated somewhere else. And so if I'm reading this Fayetteville ordinance, maybe, I think that's what they're getting at, is, okay, you can have an event center, you can have an alcohol license, but you're gonna serve the alcohol over here.
Well, that's
And not-
exactly how we do the special events.
I think
In
what
the
if
park,
it's
you know, yeah, it's
Nobody-
the same thing. You have a designated area.
And nobody under 21 can go in this designated area?
Yeah, they can. That's the only place that you can serve it.
Okay.
And the caterer is
But
responsible
underage
for
people can go in.
checking, yeah.
Hopefully, by next council meeting, we can put this back
Okay.
on as a discussion item, and then I'll have some more information, and hopefully be able to talk a little bit more intelligently on the
Okay,
topic.
all right. All right, it's on your plate, Rob. We're turning it over to you. So figure that out. All right, we're under the resolutions section of our agenda this evening, and the first resolution for us to discuss is the granting the enterprise zone incentive to Pivotal Consulting for property located at 224 East Second Street. And they have, Jessica's emailed us out in our packets the information about that, which looks really good, Jessica. I like the way the new format is. It's much easier to understand. So anything you want to share with us on that?
I don't.
Huh?
I don't.
Okay, okay, so
But
everybody,
I will say that they are meeting the requirements of the enterprise zone incentives based on the 5-to-1 ratio of investment, not number of employees. And staff is based on the schedule that you all adopted, I believe it was last year. The total incentives available would be, tax abatements are kind of, they're iffy. I estimated those off of the taxable value. So it's coming up to right under $3,300.
okay. All right, and the proposed new facade really looks nice. I think that'll be a nice addition to Second Street and what's going on along that road near the courthouse. And you have a picture of that. So we'll read through those and,
Let me ask a question.
all right.
And it's not about this particular enterprise incentive. Is there a way to maybe, I know we've looked at this once already, maybe to look at it from a standpoint of not actually giving property tax incentive, but maybe more of your permit and landfill incentive, you get what I mean? I mean, the property tax abatement, aspect of it.
Bruce, do you want to address that, because I know you're
Yeah.
very familiar with the.
If I heard your question correctly, yeah, the 1997 Enterprise Zone Employment Act, in its original form and its subsequent modifications, allows a local government, in this case a city, to do exactly what you just said, that wherever possible, incentives can be lined up, but the intent of the law was the property tax abatement.
Okay.
It's
I
the core
doubt
of the law.
Well,
Anybody
I mean, I just know that the city abates taxes, but the county does not, and then once that improvement happens, they receive full benefit for every year of that, and we are abating those taxes, and we have a smaller pool of property taxes, and so that's what I was saying, I would much rather give more incentive in the front as far as your building permits, your any other sort of incentive, and maybe that's not feasible, I mean, to really, you know, I just know that some of the numbers in the past have been really significant, you know, and that's just what.
Yeah, statutorily, the county has the option to also do the same thing.
Yeah.
The only, when the law was passed back in 97, the only exclusion was the word education.
Right.
They were deliberately left out of the code. They're not a part, but in certain cases, cities and counties join together to create enterprise zone and offer the dual.
All but our county.
And if I may, economically speaking, the flip of that, which we just heard a lot about that in our session at GMA last weekend, was that the land bank authorities, that's an opportunity for our city and county to work together to create an instrument that will help in other areas where you're not having investment, but you're having, if you will, gradual disinvestment.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that. Is that clear?
No,
Is
but,
mud?
I mean, that's not what, there's not.
Well, I mean, the proposal is to.
Oh, I mean, yeah,
to-
I'm just
to
saying,
do
I
some
mean-
on the permits and utilities and landfill,
I mean, 2/3 of it is
yeah,
other than tax abatement.
yeah.
Sure, yeah, that's what I'm saying, I mean, I get that, I mean, I'm just saying, hey,
Just
let's,
talking.
yep, just talking.
Okay.
Just wanna make conversation.
All right. All right, any other questions about
Glad
the,
somebody beside me does.
Maybe people think I'm doing something good with their vote.
any other questions about the enterprise zone for this particular property? Okay. All right, moving on, we do need a resolution designating Rhythm and Ribs Barbecue Festival as a festival pursuant to the festival ordinance. That's coming up the first weekend in March. We've done this every year, so any comments, questions for Jessica on that process? I think that's pretty straightforward, unless anyone has any comments. Everybody good on that one? Okay. The next item is a resolution providing for an honorary street name designation of a portion of Chestnut Avenue. This is to be a surprise, so I don't know if we have to publicly state who the naming would be for. Do we, Rob, have to state that? Okay, well then let's don't and surprise this person. It is someone who's worked very hard on a project that's going to be in close proximity to a new building that will be opened here very shortly, if you can understand that. You catch my drift? Okay, all right, we all good? Okay, we'll move on. So we're good with that. All right, the next item is for a new alcohol beverage license for Chapo's Tequilas and Grill located at 3310 US Highway 82 West, and that application is in our packet. And our special call meeting immediately following this meeting will be to provide that for them. Jessica, any information you need to share with us as we get ready to go into that next meeting?
Are you familiar with the location?
It's the old Locos building.
Yes, and the reason we put it on there, we have reviewed it, and staff is recommending approval. They were unaware that they needed so much time to get their alcohol, and they're actually could be open today, but they're kind of waiting on, they got to get our local and the state before they can open, so.
Okay, so that application is in our packet. Any other comments, questions, Jessica, before we move on? And we'll wrap up the workshop. All right, the board report is in our packet. Jessica does a nice job of presenting that information to us each month. We will not be voting on that this evening, but as you can see, we've got several applicants for Historic Preservation Commission, applicant that's been recommended for the Tift County Library Board by the library board, by the library staff, And we do have Curtis Akins, who is on the Tipton Zoning Board of Appeals, who would like to be reappointed. So we have those positions to fill when we have our regular meeting in February, at the regular time in February. All right, any other comments, Jessica, on board report? Anything else we need to be aware of? Okay, city manager report, Pete?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sure you'll talk about Thursday, prayer breakfast.
You want to talk about it?
Is it, no, it's just a reminder.
Okay.
That This Thursday is the mayor's prayer breakfast, so.
7:30 a.m. at the Leroy Rogers Senior Center.
And then,
I know, it is early.
secondly, I wanted to let everybody know we're doing the lights at the walking trail at Fullwood at the
good.
park. This was the last step in the project, so that it could be obviously used at night. That was one of the commitments on the front end. But I do want to share with you one of the frustrations. The bathrooms there at the park and downtown are getting vandalized on a monthly basis. And at the park, for instance, they went into the men's, tore a couple of the stalls out, sinks, toilets, and just causing, a lot of damage and vandalism. So we are redoing our cameras for the entranceway, that we could obviously keep a better eye on that, but it's just costing us so much money to keep those bathrooms open. It's unfortunate. So on one good note, we have just a bad one to deal with. I wanted you to be aware of that. So, but the lights are coming along, and I think it look really great at nighttime.
Okay, very good.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Do y'all want to save mayor and council comments until the next meeting, which is going to start here in just a second? All right, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and close the workshop portion of our meeting, and we will reopen now in the special